Welcome to the Tom Sense Show, broadcasting right now across the nation. We have got a massive hour ahead of us, and remember, this is your show. At any point during this broadcast, you can throw a question in the chat on YouTube or over on X. If you have got a real, sharp question worth answering, I will pull it up and answer it right here in the middle of the news. We leave the noise behind and stick to the facts. Let us get right into the stories shaking up the country tonight. We start with a massive regulatory victory for the Trump family digital asset venture, World Liberty Financial. On Friday, August 14th, 2026, the Treasury Department Office of the Comptroller of the Currency granted conditional preliminary approval to World Liberty Trust Company to establish a bank charter. This news became widely known on Monday, August 17th. What this means in plain English is that the firm, which is co-founded by President Donald Trump's sons and owned 38% by a Trump-affiliated entity, can now issue and manage its own stablecoins, called USD1, directly right here in the United States. They do not have to rely on big financial intermediaries anymore. Of course, the moment this hit the news, Democrats and their favorite ethics experts went into a complete tailspin. They are screaming about conflict of interest because the comptroller is a presidential appointee. But let us look at the plain reality. For years, these same politicians told us that crypto was a wild west that needed to be brought into the light of the regulated banking system. Now that a Trump-affiliated company actually steps up and does exactly that, suddenly the system itself is the problem. If these critics actually cared about financial security, they would be celebrating the fact that digital assets are being integrated into a regulated American framework. Instead, they are just furious that they did not get to block it. This is a huge milestone for the financial sector, and it shows that the future of finance is being built right here in America. On Monday, August 17th, 2026, former federal prosecutor Sunita Dadamani filed a lawsuit against the Department of Justice, claiming she was fired in retaliation for prosecuting anti-abortion activists. Dadamani worked as an assistant United States attorney in the Eastern District of Michigan until she was let go in April, along with two other career prosecutors. Here is the timing that has the left in an absolute uproar. The terminations happened exactly one day before Attorney General Todd Blanche released a massive 900-page report. That report accused the previous administration of showing extreme bias in how they enforced the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act. Dadamani claims her firing was a purely political purge because she secured conspiracy and civil rights convictions against clinic blockaders in Michigan. The Justice Department is keeping quiet on the active lawsuit, while critics are crying foul about a partisan cleanup of career civil servants. Let us be entirely honest here. Under the previous administration, the Department of Justice was weaponized to target citizens while career prosecutors looked the other way on massive civil unrest. Now, the new leadership is establishing accountability and ensuring the law is applied equally without political bias. When the federal government finally starts cleaning house and demanding neutrality from its employees, the people who spent years playing favorites suddenly claim they are the victims. It is not a partisan purge to expect federal prosecutors to uphold the Constitution instead of a political agenda. We have some incredibly sad news to share next from the entertainment world. Actress Hayden Panettiere, who captured the hearts of millions on the hit television shows Heroes in Nashville, has died suddenly at the young age of 36. On Sunday, August 16th, 2026, first responders in South Carolina were dispatched following an emergency 911 call reporting an unresponsive female in cardiac arrest. Her representative and her father, Skip Panettiere, confirmed her tragic passing on Monday, remembering her as an incredible light and a force of nature. Law enforcement officials have launched an open investigation into the circumstances of her death, and the Greenville County coroner has not yet released an official cause. Panettiere first broke onto the scene as a talented child actor in the beloved movie Remember the Titans, before transitioning into a massive primetime television star with multiple award nominations. Tributes are pouring in from her co-stars, friends, and millions of fans across social media who grew up watching her on screen. It is an absolute tragedy to lose someone with so much talent and life ahead of her so soon. Our thoughts and prayers go out to her father, her family, and everyone who loved her during this incredibly difficult time. On Monday, August 17th, 2026, a group of civil liberties organizations representing more than 24 Texas families took their fight to the highest court in the land. They petitioned the United States Supreme Court to overturn Texas Senate Bill 10, which requires every public school classroom in the state to permanently display a Protestant version of the Ten Commandments. This appeal comes after the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals voted 9-8 back in April to uphold the law, pointing to a 2022 Supreme Court precedent on religious expression. The coalition of plaintiffs, backed by the American Civil Liberties Union and Americans United, argues that the law violates the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment and tramples on parental rights to guide their children's religious upbringing. Meanwhile, Governor Greg Abbott and supporters of the law argue that the commandments are not just religious texts, but foundational moral principles that shaped American legal history. Let us look at this with some perspective. The critics claim that hanging a historical, foundational moral code on a classroom wall is a threat to the nation. Yet, these same groups have no problem with schools displaying highly political, ideological banners in front of young children without parental consent. If we are going to talk about parental rights and protecting children from unwanted messaging, let us apply that standard across the board instead of only when historical American values are on display. Down on the southern border, United States Customs and Border Protection Commissioner Rodney Scott announced a temporary pause on all border wall construction inside Big Bend National Park. This decision, announced on Monday, August 17th, 2026, comes after significant feedback from local business owners, residents, and environmental groups. They argue that the rugged, extreme terrain of the park, which features 1,000-foot riverbank cliffs, already acts as a powerful natural barrier to illegal crossings. Building heavy vehicle barriers and patrol roads through this pristine area could cause permanent damage to a beautiful national sanctuary. Even Texas Senator John Cornyn joined other local leaders in asking the administration to take another look at the plan. Commissioner Scott made it clear that this pause is temporary, allowing a small team to go down there, evaluate the ground conditions firsthand, and consult directly with the local stakeholders who know the land best. This is exactly how smart, effective governance is supposed to work. Unlike the previous administration, which simply ignored local communities to push top-down mandates, the Trump administration is showing it can be strong on border security while still listening to the patriotic Americans who live and work on the land. Securing our nation does not mean we have to run roughshod over our own national treasures, and taking the time to get it right is a win for everyone involved. Finally tonight, a major battle has erupted over the cost of health care. On Monday, August 17th, 2026, the White House celebrated the largest annual drop in prescription drug prices in over 60 years, calling it a massive victory for President Trump policies. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that drug prices fell 3.9% year over year, which is the sharpest decline we have seen since 1963. The Trump administration points to its most favored nation pricing framework and the newly launched Trump RX platform as the driving forces behind these historic price cuts on insulin, cholesterol treatments, and popular weight loss drugs. Predictably, the mainstream media and Democrats are furious. They are claiming that these price drops were actually mandated by the Biden-era Inflation Reduction Act, which only started taking full effect this year. They are accusing Trump of taking credit for his predecessor work. But here is the plain reality that the media wants to step around. Passing a massive, bureaucratic bill years ago did not magically lower prices. It was the Trump administration active, aggressive negotiations with 17 major drug makers that actually forced these historic cuts and put real money back into the pockets of working Americans. While the left wants to argue about who gets the trophy, the American people are finally getting relief at the pharmacy counter. That is the kind of results-driven leadership that matters. That is the news for this hour. I am Tom Sense. Thank you for tuning in. Keep your head up, and we will see you next time right here on the show.